on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook Live. So let me get my plugs in. Gonna try to get more people to watch on Twitch today. So last night was about 12 hours ago was an interesting time. So I'll get into that shortly. Okay, let's get started now. So gotta get let's get the tabs rolling. There we go. Okay, now we got it right. So just about 12 hours ago, I uploaded a video. I clipped it from Monday's stream and I wanted to discuss the discourse that happened following Jimmy Dore letting us in on his more aggressive symptoms with his Moderna shots. The point of that is people need to know the downsides of the vaccine as well. It can't just be a one-sided dialogue. And I also had to brush back against people who are trying to deny anything beyond the normal, the realm of average symptoms for any of these vaccine shots. So, going to go to this tweet here and click on the images. Sorry, this takes a bit of time to load, more than I would ideally like. So there's the first one, first image telling me about the video being removed for guideline. Then this one right here shows that the reason they removed it was because of medical misinformation. And of course, I immediately went to appeal it. What I said in the appeal is that in the video, me or my guest, Kevin Kirby, we never told people what to do on the vaccine. We have always been, my thing has always been at the end of the day, you have to make your personal choice on it. But at the same time, you can't be authoritarian about these vaccines, even if these had the greater information out there to make it the comfort level even higher. We've I've provided the some analysis on this issue. Even with the skepticism, you're still probably going to get a little more than half of the country eventually vaccinated. And if these were more trustworthy and you had better information on the to make the skeptical people more comfortable about taking it, then you could see at least 70% of the country fully vaccinated, maybe more. Because I don't believe that the anti-vax group, the truly committed anti-vax group, is as really high as progressives and liberals and even your classic conservatives would believe the case to be. So what I told him is, in that appeal, I said, we never shared any medical disinformation. Then my second sentence in the appeal is, if YouTube were to keep the video removed, that all they would be doing is playing the same part as a lot of the flack that Jimmy Dore got for sharing his experience, and all you would be doing is helping this invalidate his experience as well. And then when I woke up a couple hours before the show, I saw the video was back up. So I'm glad that this is now back up on my page. Sometime later in the day, it'll probably be my most viewed video. It was at 55 views, and what I've noticed is that it has a positive trickle effect on the other videos on my channel. People are going to check out my video of Jimmy Dore, then they're also going to click some of the other videos, like the clip from Friday where I call out that Aurora police officer leaving for not knowing what communism is. So even that, in effect, has helped get more help some videos get a few extra views that I wouldn't have gotten initially. So for now, I'm glad that somebody decided to let that go. Even though at some point I'm going to cross paths, get multiple strikes with YouTube. I'm going to lose some appeals. Well, that's why I got to be able to build a network somewhere outside of YouTube. And that's why, for promotional purposes today, I will be trying to get more people on Twitch. I have really struggled in the early point of this show to get viewers on Twitch. So I hope that I can improve those numbers. And even on Twitter, when I've looked at the early analytics of my show so far, 65% through Facebook and 6 through Twitter. So I would like to also see some better interaction from Twitter, just mainly clicking from there and watching the show. Now that we've got that out of the way, this happened late Monday night. Mark Ruffalo decided to backtrack his support for Palestine in this tweet right here. I have reflected and wanted to apologize for posts during the recent Israel-Hamas fighting that suggested Israel is committing genocide. It's not accurate. It's inflammatory, disrespectful, and is now being used to justify anti-Semitism here and abroad. Now is the time to avoid hyperbole. So here's why this conceding of ground from Mark Ruffalo is bad. It has given the pro-Israel people vindication that they're right on the issue and that they have the right to defend themselves. But the problem is they're wrong on this. And it's just the reality that you see from most celebrities here. The ones that initially take the right but will feel like a bolder stance for them on the whole issue of Israel and Palestine. Because you have to keep in mind that anti Semitism is wrongly being inflated as a deflection to support the Palestinian people. At the end of the day, they're the ones that are being really oppressed here. And a big part of the left platform is supporting the oppressed people. I've said that you can't be pro Black Lives Matter than pro Israel. That type of inconsistency won't work. You've also seen liberals will that have ingenuine support for Black Lives Matter, but support Democrats who are counterproductive to it. And here's what the real problem is. It's more than just a small deviation from fully being on board with the issue, being on the right side. It's the fact that now the liberals, are now going to force us to cede ground on other issues. And while Mark Ruffalo is one of the Bernie supporting candidate celebrities, Bernie Sanders also has several celebrities who really capitulated and immediately shifted their support to Joe Biden, such as Dave Bautista, Sarah Silverman. That was the large majority of the blue checkmark Bernie supporting celebrities over time come to realize that more of his support was rad liberals than we thought. And Mark Ruffalo is just another celebrity who falls into that camp of people who are really just Democratic Party loyalist at the end of the day. And that's why we could use a bigger group of celebrities who are more principled and won't allow themselves to be compromised in ways like these. Because this is the path of what moments like these with your blue check mark people who are more left than your average liberal check marks. And I felt like it was a good point to shift into this tweet from Mehdi Hassan. The right looks for converts. The left looks for traitors. And here's why I disagree with Mehdi Hassan. First off, the left has been asked to cede ground on all their issues ever since they made sure FDR could no longer implement populist policies. That's how long that this has been happening for. And are there small things that are reasonably in the realm of disagreements on the left? Yes. First off, I think we could have disagreements on what type of universal healthcare system to implement. I think we could have a reasonable disagreement on how much UBI people should get. Because at the end of the day, with UBI, it's eventually going to be needed to support more one person working households. I think we could have reasonable disagreements on the left about the ways we could transform policing while, as long as you're in the moderate position of defund. If you're there, then I think we're at least in a reasonable spot. I think we could also have fair disagreements on the prison system, even though I think the prison system should be also part of the road of abolition. There's probably a small bit of room of disagreement on drugs, even though for me, I'm big on the civil liberties and letting people make their own decisions on drugs now. Saying that because I used to be someone that would always vote for tax increases on cigarettes due to my experience growing up with a parent that would endlessly smoke. But nowadays, I would not vote on that tax increase in spite of my bias against cigarettes. And that's one thing moving left has shown me, that you kind of have to let certain biases against drugs and alcohol go. So to act like that, there isn't any room within the realm of left platform for disagreement is absurd, because this type of rhetoric, especially from Mehdi Hassan, it leads to the anti-purity test liberals who want us to drop any type of baseline of bar in order for the Democrats to get our support. This was a big thing in recent elections, especially people like Kyle Kalinske and Brianna Joy Gray have really gotten into this whole purity test issue. I will be talking Kyle Kalinske later on, so I'll be reacting to a portion of his live secular talking smack from Monday. But the point is that I think the majority of the left could have made the purity test just adopting one issue from Bernie Sanders' campaign. And I'm sorry, the public option and the $15 minimum wage, neither of which are going to happen, were good enough to get the majority of people over. Even though we had a disappointing turnout for third parties, I think this Biden administration is showing why more and more we have to leverage use our leverage as people to make the Democratic Party earn our votes back. And I'll elaborate on that further in the show as I go through and react to Kyle Kalinske and his rant on third parties. Because I think over time I've learned I've got plenty of good faith disagreements with what he said. Let's get into this next story here. I'm gonna break down the George Floyd Act and why we shouldn't, just after a year that he got killed by Minneapolis police to be exact. There has now been a recent push to get the George Floyd Act passed through the Senate. So I'm going to break through and promote that real quick. There, sorry, I didn't try to get people to Twitch, so that's why I flew transition. So yesterday, the NBA Players Association posted a video from Karl-Anthony Towns, the Minnesota Timberwolves center. So I'm about to play that real quick for y'all.
Today marks the 1 year. Today marks the 1 year anniversary. And thank you. But there's still so much more work to be done.
Sorry about that. I was getting a major echo. So hopefully when I try to play the Kyle Kalinske clip, it won't have the same issue. So pretty much Karl-Anthony Towns said that he's trying to implore people to call their senators to get the George Floyd Act passed through the Senate. It has passed the House already, but we can't have that. But it's not a good thing to have happen. If there's one criticism I have of the NBA players and the political activism is that they get pulled in the wrong direction. Their activism gets sheep-herded and co-opted into the Democratic Party. And the vast majority of NBA players seem more like corporate liberals. Even though there's moments where they do things that are better than your average Democrat, my main top example of that would be LeBron James starting his own school in Akron. And I think that it's a thing that needs to go through the whole entire country. And the fact that conservatives took issue with it because of city funding. But the main point was LeBron James wanted to make sure that school remained public. But this instead is an example of why they're being sheep-herded into the wrong direction with by trying to get people to help implore their senators to pass the George Floyd Act. So the first issue of the George Floyd Act is that it gives the police more money. So I'm going to go through a few of the key bullet points and give you the good and the bad of it. So there's recently been a push to try to get this bipartisan George Floyd Act through the Senate. The They had tried to do it in 2020, but the bill ended up just being stuck on Mitch McConnell's desk and never got anywhere past that. But with the 1 year since George Floyd got killed by police, it's been a moment where Democrats have tried to revive this revised 2021 version of it. I think the biggest positive of this bill is the federal ending of qualified immunity. That's probably the biggest overall positive of this George Floyd Act. However, the federal level doesn't always translate to the local and state level, which is why you probably need the qualified immunity to happen state by state instead, if you really wanted it to work better. And remember last year when Tim Scott crafted a bill, which was even more simplistic than the George Floyd Policing Act. It's been Democrats quickly dismissed that bill, and Republicans have used that as an opportunity to try to paint the Democrats as not really wanting to do anything about police reform. I don't think that's completely true. However, this bill wouldn't be the right way to go about it. But the big issue about this bill is a lot of it contains reforms that the police can, at a moment's notice, electively decide to not follow. Like, first off, the banning of chokeholds is one that the police could always change their mind on not following. Then the trying to restrict the no-knock warrants, another reform that, in the heat of the moment, the police can ultimately selectively ignore. Well, another small positive of the bill is the data on police misconduct. Well, at least positive in the way that there will, at least you'll know which police have done wrong. However, the issue with this is it doesn't guarantee that the departments will follow through on using the data correctly as a means of preventing police officers from working for their department should the misconduct be warranted enough to not hire them. Because right now we've seen that officers can easily go work somewhere else if they happen to get fired from their department. Next is making racial profiling illegal. Once again, this is another one of those reforms that would be very easy for police officers to avoid. First off, even the racist police officers, how many of them are really going to admit that they racially profiled someone? The problem is this doesn't go beyond consciousness, and it won't do anything. And most people's consciousness, especially police departments all around the country, infiltrated with white supremacy, it's not going to change their consciousness since hardly anyone will truly admit that they're racist, and that's part of the thing that keeps police departments from more transformative change. I think the demand has risen since last year the with George Floyd killing happening. But there's still a problem with a group of people trying to block transformative change. And Democrats, in a ways, are more responsible for blocking the transformative police change that we really need. In fact, I saw a graph that proves that it's honestly Democrats on average who receive more campaign funding from police. Here's what I got into the point about limiting the violence police can use. This is just another example of a reform that they can just decide not to follow, then make the I feared for my life defense. Limiting military equipment. So, one of the things that you'll notice with police departments and there being overfunding is that they're going to spend a lot of the extra money that they have on military equipment. And based on the text here, it's like a recommendation rather than a demand. The mandating of body cameras. I thought that it was already a mandate. Here's the problem with that one. We've already seen how, with these body cameras, when the police have a instance where it makes them look really bad. They're going to do all they can to prevent the body camera footage from making it public. And that's what we've seen with this recent killing of Andrew Brown Jr. They don't want the public to see that because it will become dead obvious that they were extremely wrong in that case. The body cams are supposed to expose what really happens in instances of police brutality. It doesn't work if the departments can step in and prevent the body cam footage from going public. And in that Andrew Brown Jr. case example, it's the reason why you're not going to see the outrage at the level it should be because they know they fucked up badly there. And they're going to try to keep the public's outrage toned down. And once again, it even with the body cameras on, it's not like a parent watching over you. It's more like a friend. And at this point, they're still extremely protected. And once again, what these liberal reformist bills do is redress up the same things. And a lot of this bill is the repackaging. And what I liken it to is how much, for example, Kane got repackaged in his WWE career. Now, Glenn Jacobs, the libertarian mayor of Knoxville, that's the example I like to use a police for. Look at all the different looks that Kane had in his career, and that's the type of police reform that Democrats offer you. And pretty much what it comes down to is you're mainly supporting the George Floyd Act for federal qualified immunity, which may not even work as well as you'd like because of it needs to be strengthened at the local and state level. That's pretty much why we shouldn't be for the George Floyd Act and why I wouldn't be contacting Congress representatives and House reps and senators over trying to get this bill through. At the end of the article, it mentioned the Breathe Act. And I think that the Breathe Act is the better bill to push for. This one of the authors of the bill was Ayanna Pressley of the Squad. The issue with this Breathe Act is the fact that this bill is sitting on Nancy Pelosi's desk and it won't get brought to a vote, plain and simple. And it's also in part because they're not forcing the vote on this stuff. The progressives we have in the House and the couple in the Senate, they consider it good enough to just show and tell. Not enough action. I'm going to go over this Breathe Act real quick. Schools for full free of police and full of trained counselors and restorative justice programs where all our children are kept safe and their needs are met. In Denver, that the DPS schools director Tay Anderson still currently under hot water at the moment, but over the course of last year, one of the things he did work on was removing police officers from schools. And it's a thing that needs to happen in more schools across the country. So there's not very many, there's a few cities here and there that have already followed through on that. Imagine easy access to trained, trauma informed interventionist who can be called on domestic violence situations and who are equipped to facilitate long term safety, healing, and prevention. This stems to the point of police being called for these instances and not having the frame of mind to properly respond to these situations. They've been designed to respond with violence, even though what the police are supposed to be is trying to take down violence. De escalate is the word. Their job is to de escalate, but in situations with mental health, they do the opposite. There's been countless cases of autistic, death, people who have been brutalized because police have lacked the frame of mind to have the versatility to respond to those situations. Imagine 911 operators dispatching unwanted mental health experts instead of police involving behavioral health crises and callers being allowed to request responders that connect to the gender identity of the person in crisis. And I kind of tied into the previous one as well. So I responded to that as well. And the four simple ideas of it is divest federal resources from incarceration and policing. Invest in new non-punitive, non-carceral approaches to community safety that lead states to shrink their criminal legal systems and center the protection of Black lives, including Black mothers, Black trans people, and Black women. Allocate new money to build healthy, sustainable, and equitable communities. Hold political leaders to their promises and enhance self-determination of all Black communities. Uprisings around the country changed what was possible. What felt impossible 2 months ago is being accomplished now. What seems impossible today is doable tomorrow, and we will be the ones to make it happen. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. I think that gave a very good summary of what this bill aims to do. So I'm going to take it back to this tweet from the NBA Players Association. It's because the NBA has the NBA players and the association, they have the ability to use their platform to push for things that go beyond the scope of what the Democratic Party is willing to offer. And this Breathe Act is an example of how that could happen. The issue with NBA players, as I stated at the start, and your liberal professional athletes and celebrities, is that they don't, they toe the party line. There's a few exceptions, such as Justin Jackson. In a way, you need people, you need the stars of your league to do it as well. It's definitely more impactful when you got your stars advocating for things that go beyond the what the Democratic Party offers. While role players are nice, and it is good to see the occasional few be right on the issue, like a Justin Jackson, a David West. The issue is they don't have the notoriety at this time to be an advocate of the Breathe Act, push for force the vote. If we really want that impact to amplify, it has to come from the Karl-Anthony Townses, the LeBron James, the Chris Pauls. It's those guys that have to do it if they want the extra attention to, and you want the Overton window to be shifted further left. And as long as you got the majority of your liberal celebrities just towing the party line, it's going to make advancing the left policies even harder. And one of the reasons why I've started the Rochford files, it's to advance left policy. So that means I'm not going to go and just respond to libertarians all day and right wingers, because reacting to the Ben Shapiro's, the Steven Crowders, those aren't going to advance our movement if we're just being reactive. And I'm being proactive instead because I feel like it's going to help more do things like this where I try to pull the Overton window further left, which is why I'm disagreeing with people like Karl-Anthony Towns in pushing for the George Floyd Act. It's not because, and I'm doing it to the left of him. I'm not disagreeing to his right because I'm not going to punch left on people. I'm always going to punch up and punch right. And it's important to make sure people know that even your more politically active celebrities and athletes aren't always acting in our best interest. And you see from time to time when there's people that challenge them on social media, for example, the mob mentality suffocates those people. And I've seen instances of John Legend and a couple others that have challenged, have really shot down criticism from their left when they get politically active. Oh, Don Cheadle was the other one who couldn't handle the criticism from his left. And this is why we need to do it more. There's going to be a few celebrities and athletes we have a chance to pull further left if they're responsive, if they keep their head open to the criticisms we pose their way. Next, I'm going to move to a video that came from President Biden yesterday, telling press about his experience with meeting George Floyd's daughter, Gianna. So let's see if I can avoid that nasty echo this time around.
I think they were very pleased with the time we spent together. It was mostly first, and we spent a long time. I guess a couple hours. My lap, and we spent. We also loved the idea that he said, "I'm really hungry." So he said, "You're having snacks?" Well, my wife was filming. We gave her some ice cream. She had some Cheetos, and I think she had a salted milk. I'm not sure what she told me. But anyhow, I told them all. We spent time showing them around, not just the Oval, but around the White House. And they were interested in gave them all little mementos, especially her. I had a great picture of Gianna when I went down to the funeral. I think they spoke to maybe they spoke to some of you. I think they were very pleased with the time we spent together.
Okay, that was less bad that time around. Once again, Joe Biden is being that creepy man that you've seen throughout his life, and that the liberal media has always done cover for him. When you see videos and photos where it looks like he sniffs women's necks and hair, and you're supposed to tell me that you believe that he hasn't raped anyone with the way he casually speaks about his creepiness? You have to remember Tara Reid, when she came out with her accusations towards Joe Biden, they essentially told her to fuck off. And it was wrong because she deserved a proper trial just the way that Brett Kavanaugh's accuser got. And it once again goes into the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party and how they ignore these instances when it comes from their own party. They are no longer, they dropped being the party of Me Too. There's very few people who are actually principled on the issue. What it all boils down to is this election we were asked to choose between your racist, choose between your fascist, and choose between your rapist. Even though there was propaganda, counter propaganda against Tara Reid, they never actively proved or made an effort to do that Joe Biden was in the clear. And it wasn't just her, it was 8 other women that it came forward with their accusations of sexual misconduct from the President Joe Biden right now. And what was destructive about that propaganda is that it also led to the whole diversion to what about Trump? And the problem with liberals being fixated on that is if you only allow yourself to be fixated on Donald Trump, you really going to sit there and just let all other occurrences of sexual misconduct happen? Because that's the rhetoric they spew. Not only has Joe Biden got off scot-free, it's also been Andrew Cuomo. Lindsey Boyan, his accuser, has just been smeared into silence. Cuomo's just sitting back, waiting for the issue to go away. And you're supposed to tell me that there's nothing wrong with Joe Biden's a pure saint? No, he's a creepy weirdo. And the DNC and the mainstream media are playing cover for him and showing how Me Too was very partisan. So I'm going to go to the restroom real quick and I'll be right back to talk John Cena next. So yesterday, John Cena had an apology for calling Taiwan a country in a media appearance promoting Fast and Furious 9. So I'm going to play that apology he does in Mandarin real quick.
你好，中国，就是叫西安。我必须说，现在，在速度与激情中，我做很多采访，很多，所以在一个采访，我有一个错误，所有人问我，如果我可以用中文，速度与激情中有很多资讯 information。所以很多采访，很多 information，我有一个错误，我必须说，现在就是很重要，要爱更尊重中国，更中国人。我很抱歉对我的错误，对不起，我很抱歉，必须了解，我很爱，很尊重中国人，不好意思，再见。
So after that came out yesterday on Twitter, John Cena trended. Then, as usual, the anti-China right-wingers lost their shit again. Just like when LeBron James feigned concern over their safety after the current Sixers GM Daryl Morey made a statement in favor of Hong Kong democracy. The right-wingers love suddenly telling you that they care about human rights when it comes to China. They have no moral ground here. They love the status quo and the human rights that are being abused by the oppressive police state and capitalism, but they are not the good actors who have the moral high ground to stand on to oppose John Cena. Oh, first off, on principle, my personal principle, I wouldn't allow China to get me to backtrack from my political stances. But at the same time, my current focus isn't that big on China, except to attack the right wingers who love Chinagate. That's my main focus when it comes to attacking the right, because their rhetoric leads to Asian hate. And that's probably one of the main things you'll see me go after the right on. The Democrats, they aren't exactly helpful on it. They're just less inflammatory. I took a small look into this whole China thing, China and Taiwan thing. And my first thought was maybe John Cena just doesn't want to insert himself in this issue. And that takes me to the other issue I have with the right. They want us to assert ourselves into every single conflict that is going on around the world. While you'll see everyone else who isn't caught in that China Gate perspective, it's far more selective than that. Right now, the big focus on the left is the genocide and the apartheid state taking place between Israel and Palestine. But we don't have to involve ourselves in every single damn issue. And the issue with the right wanting that done is that they do it for all the wrong reasons. They want liberals and the left to focus on China in the same way they do. That way they can distract us from trying to fight for actual change here. They also are the biggest supporters of coups, especially the ones in the American South, where they try to go against the countries that want socialism in place, like Bolivia, Colombia, Venezuela. And we aren't on, and anyone opposed to that isn't on board to their pro-coup state, where they claim they do it in the name of liberation, but they're doing quite the opposite. I looked into the relations of Taiwan and Chinese a bit, and to sum it up, pretty much Taiwan would like to be recognized as its own country, but China doesn't want to allow that to happen. And they've had a very strained relationship over their time. Things have recently flared up again. The difference is that the Biden administration is currently not trying to increase conflict. They're trying to at least please both sides. I wouldn't call it being neutral. Just the statement I read earlier in order to try to get a better understanding of the issue. There's about 15 other countries that recognize Taiwan as its own country, but not currently the United States. Just know that there's a big amount of China hypocrisy. It's it's the main distraction point that the right likes to use. And I will be right back in just a moment. All right, I'm back. I just had to grab a couple packages off my porch. Is there anything else I'd like to sum up with? Just like the right likes to use Chinagate as a distraction to get people prevented from trying to fight for real change here in the United States. I'm not going to leave out liberals because they like to Russiagate in order to prevent the left from fighting for real change. You've seen it. Kamala Harris, she said that Colin Kaepernick's protest of the national anthem was Russian influenced. I believe it was Condoleezza Rice who said last summer during the George Floyd protests that they were being influenced by Russia. And that they get liberals to call leftist Russian agents. In fact, it's only a matter of time before people start to call me a Russian agent. So the fact remains that even though celebrities, a lot of them, have capitulated to China for financial reasons, it's being weaponized by the right for the very wrong reasons. So the next thing I'm going to get into is Bernie Sanders. So it came out earlier this morning that Bernie Sanders drops bid to block Biden's Israel arms sale. Senator Bernie Sanders is dropping his bid to block a $735 million arms sale to Israel, capping off the long-shot Senate effort, an aide confirmed to The Hill. Sanders will no longer try to force a vote on his resolution after being informed last week that the sale had been improved. Sanders has also dropped a hold on State Department nominees that he had placed last week after speaking with Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, who discussed the steps the administration is preparing to take to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and across the Palestinian territories. Sanders, according to an aide, told Sherman that returning to the pre-war status quo was insufficient, and that he and other lawmakers were going to push for greater debate to make sure that the U.S. arms sales do not support human rights abuses. Secretary Sherman committed to a continuing dialogue on these issues. As a result of this conversation, Senator Sanders has lifted his hold on State Department nominees, the aide added. Sanders announced late last week that he intended to force a vote on a resolution to block the sale amid an escalating conflict between Israel and Hamas. But the effort almost immediately appeared doomed. Sanders was short of the votes needed to get the resolution through Senate. Under the Arms Export Control Act, Sanders needed a simple majority but faced opposition from Democrats. There were also questions about if he could force a vote since the congressional review period for the sale closed last week. I think procedurally he may be out of time. Senator Bob Menendez Democrat of New Jersey, told reporters shortly after Sanders announced his plan. But I'm not sure. We'll see what the parliamentarian has to say. Based on what I read in this article, it just shows the further incompetence that the few progressives we got in Congress have. Bernie Sanders, he has displayed more fight than the squad on average. In this example, it sounds like he intentionally turned on his fight when it was too late to begin with, thus allowing him to get the good PR, just like in the way that the squad's opposition to this bill happened just one day before this arms sale got approved. All right, now the point I'm going to make here is a point I've made a lot on Twitter in the past. It really doesn't matter what brand of Democrat there is, they always throw in the towel at least 2 to 3 rounds too soon. And what I think the left smartly recognizes is when you do this, people are going to give up on you. And if you fight properly, they would keep people more engaged. We've seen, especially the Progressive Squad and their neighboring progressive allies, they've had a chance to use their leverage in the House to attempt to pull the Democrats further left in a way that could save them from being slaughtered in the midterms. The problem is they display the same type of incompetence when it comes to properly showing people that they're fighting for them. In fact, they probably are even worse fighters than the average corporatized Democrats. And this is why you see so many people give up on politics, become disengaged, and don't let this be something you blame on the people. This is the fault of the system. The oligarchy is designed this way. It makes Republicans look like the ones who fight. Democrats always capitulate to the right. And you see it in just about every bill that gets passed. In the first and almost certainly only stimulus, they capitulated to Republicans on the UI, for example, on the checks, even though they negotiated against themselves. Overall, when you see articles like this come out, it time and time again shows how the Democratic Party as a whole are poor fighters. And they would do a better job at keeping people engaged if they didn't give up so soon. If Bernie Sanders had done this fight correctly, it would just lead to another failed vote. And that's the point I make is every fight should lead to failure if you're showing that you're properly fighting. And people wouldn't give up on staying engaged in national politics, especially maintaining consistent support for Democrats, if they show that they've consistently fought for the people. And if I personally saw real attempts, especially from progressives in Congress, to fight for these bills, then we can't attack them for their lack of fight the same way that we would with your average Democrats of the world. Because I think it's possible that even if squad members try to use their leverage to pass the $15 minimum wage, or, for example, increase that paycheck to $2,000 like originally promised, was it still possible that they would have lost the war of leverage? Yes, it still was. But the point I'm making here is you don't let your thought of outcome beat you. You force the opposition to beat you. You don't defeat yourself and stop before you should. And this is why so many people are disenfranchised from the Democratic Party. The only issue is the big problem is even with people wanting the third party more than ever, our reach isn't big enough as a whole on the independent left to make that transformation. Don't forget organizing strategy. I also think the ceiling of organizing is stunted by the fact that a lot of organizers are in movements that have been co-opted by the Democratic Party as well. So it's not just about the reach of the left media. It's also organizing is stunted. It all goes hand in hand of why we haven't been able to make enough progress on a third party just yet. And that's going to get me into this next video, which I'm going to close the show off with today, of Kyle Kalinski's rant about third parties that he had during his secular talking smack on Monday. So let me try to see if I can get some more people in for this closing segment of the show. All right, let's get into this. So unlike the other videos I just let play straight through, I'm going to stop this one a lot more to respond sentence by sentence.
That would be ridiculous. That would be ridiculous. If Justice Democrats was the solution and they failed, why is the third party not viable? What you're suggesting is just to do justice. I didn't say do Justice Democrats. See, now I'm stuck because people are putting fucking words in my mouth. But we've seen that strategy fail over and over.
So I know what point Kyle Kulinski is about to get into with the third party failing over and over again. Some of that failure comes down to the leadership strategy that is involved. And I think the other part of it boils down to people. There's not enough people that can let go of the fear of going into of leaving the Democratic Party. You'll have some personalities who try to be part of the left. They spend the majority of an election cycle being anti-establishment. Then when it gets closer to election time, they capitulate to the Democratic Party candidate. Kyle, however, well, he doesn't do that. I do have some disagreements with what he's saying.
Strategy fail over and over. Okay, so point number one. The third party fucking strategy has failed over and over too, and they failed way more profoundly than the Justice Democrats have failed. How many Greens are in Congress? How many Greens are in the Senate? How many Greens are even in fucking local and state places? They're not there. How many People's Party people are in the Senate? How many People's Party people are in Congress? How many? How many? So somehow that's not a failure, but it's a failure when we get 12 there and they don't do as good of a job as they should do.
Okay. The issue I have with Kyle Kulinski's argument here is I think he's too focused on the idea of people. For me, when it comes to electoralism, I think we should de-emphasize the idea of people and change our strategy to be based around policy. So that means we're probably going to have to get our platform enacted through a state-by-state level. So that would be ranked choice voting, Medicare for all, those are two big things that, don't forget, defund the police, although a lot more of that is going to have to take place at a city by city level. But I think you get my point that I think that the issue I have with this statement is he's too focused on the idea of people. And I want to get away from that and put the focus on policy. And when you've seen Kashama Shawant in the Seattle City Council, the reason why she's fought so well as the socialist alternative candidate is because the fact is it's just easier to do it at a local level. And if we actually take more of a bottom-up approach to electoralism, while higher up just making these policies of the left come down to the votes of the people rather than the votes of the House or the Senate. Even though the president or the governor has the possibility of vetoing the will of the people, as what we've seen right now, it's just going to end up being the better path forward for the left.
Take off the fucking blinders, son. Take off the blinder. People are holding on to this thing in a religious, cultish type way. This idea of a third party. I'll believe it's going to happen when RC Cola overtakes Coca-Cola and Pepsi. It's not going to fucking happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
So the thing what I mean by him having the idea of being too focused on people focused in the change is the third party for me doesn't have to actually win. For me, supporting a third party, the end game is getting the policy done. It means that we don't even necessarily have to get people in. We just have to show that we're capable of voting against the Democratic Party. And as Lawrence O'Donnell said it best is, the Democratic Party won't change until you show you're not capable of voting for it. And I don't necessarily think the end game of the third party has to be actually winning seats. It could just be a tool of leverage. That alone is good enough for me to use the third party. And history has shown that most of the positive things that the two-party system has done has been enacted by outside pressure from third parties. So that's why even if the third party, whether it be People's Party trying to approve the Green Party, the end game for me isn't about people winning seats. It's about the way we advance policy.
And again, if you want to try it, go right ahead. I wish you well. I do. I just don't think it's going to work. I'm not going to bullshit you guys and say, yeah, we're really close in the next election cycle to having a People's Party. Or even one People's Party senator. You're not even going to get one fucking senator. Not even one. Not even one. So the fucking difference between me and people like this is that I'm willing to admit Justice Democrats fail. I'm willing to admit that. They're not willing to admit that their third party attempt failed, but it's been tried 1,000 fucking times and it's lost 1,000 fucking times.
So I will give him credit for admitting the failure of the Justice Democrats. And I think that starts with the organization's failure to properly vet some of their candidates, such as AOC, because that World Socialist article pretty much revealed that she wasn't the working class bartender we thought she was, that she's really been someone trying to work their way through the system in politics, and that in a way she's more of an actor than the genuine person. And even if you are a genuine working class person, the system changes them. Earlier in his Secular Talking Smack, Kyle Kulinski got into how he thinks people are too hung up on labels. I do think it matters a bit. In this campaign, Nina Turner is running for the open house seat in Ohio, in Cleveland. She has arguably co-opted her campaign in a larger way than Bernie Sanders did the second time around in 2020. So I think labels do matter a bit. What I will concede ground on is you, by and large, will have a better chance of winning through one of the two major parties. He isn't wrong on that. But that doesn't mean that we have to trust any of these progressives that are trying to campaign around the country in following through their campaign when they finally get elected. And it would mean a bit more to me if after they won their seat, they unaffiliated from the Democratic Party. I do believe if you've shown the ability to win once, you should be able to win again, even as an independent. At the same time, Bernie Sanders is an independent, but for all intents and purposes, he is more like your average Democrat. I'm not saying that he's wrong on the parties having a better chance to win in one of the major two parties, but to say that labels don't matter whatsoever, I don't find that to be completely true.
And the words that they put in my mouth were, oh, what you're suggesting is do Justice Democrats over again. When the fuck did I say that? When the fuck? What I said was, I like the idea of a general strike. I like the idea of protests around specific issues. I like the idea of building unions out. I like the idea of single policy advocacy. That's what I like. The only other point I made is that if I were to run for something, I would run as a Democrat because I'd be more likely to win as a Democrat. That's it. That's it. By the way, if a Republican came along who nominally agreed with me on the policies, I'd vote for the fucking Republican because I don't care about fucking labels. I don't care about labels, whereas these people are more obsessed with the label than actually fucking winning. So somehow somebody runs as a Democrat and they're right on all the policy issues. Now all of a sudden they're out the window, don't support them. Why? Because other Democrats are bad. What the fuck is that? I don't give a fuck if some other Democrat is bad. If this one is right on the issues, it doesn't fucking matter. I don't care about a fucking label. What am I, 5? No, it's about the actual issues. So grow up and stop fucking strawmanning people because now I'm getting.
So what it sounds like to me is Kyle is still gonna put his hopes in the system that you're eventually gonna get someone that is gonna live up to their campaign promises. From what we know, at the rate that you get progressives into Congress, that's an average of about 3. Most of us aren't going to live to even see a majority or a number that's big enough to be a module of leverage, which is why my argument for electoralism is de-emphasizing people. People have failed us because the system is going to change virtually everyone. And that change will be easier if they stay under the Democratic Party. It's not impossible for that to happen to even the rare third party candidate. So, overall, my point is we need to change what our idea of winning is. Mine is policy. My strategy is to make it less about the people that are running in Congress, make it more about the policy, make it more about direct action, because there's definitely more progress to be made. For example, Florida, as much as their Republican stranglehold that state has at times, they passed the $15 minimum wage. And even though Ron DeSantis is one of the most fascist Republican governors, you get more respect if you don't go against the will of the people. Like Gavin Newsom, who has vetoed multiple policies like ranked choice voting. So even for as much as Kyle Kulinski will criticize the squad when he needs to, he is still putting his faith into the system for the wrong reasons. And it's part of why our ability to get progress will be slowed down. At the end of the day, the progressives like Nina Turner, Isaiah James, they will be better than anyone else, almost certainly anyone else that's running against them. My point is, they shouldn't get unwavering support. That means we should not be donating to them. And if you're doing campaign work for them, we should only be doing it through non-financial means. Overall, his view of how a third party would win is very different from mine. I feel like a third party doesn't necessarily have to get that many people in order to be the leverage to enact policy. And we've seen independent movements of the two-party system, and that we've seen some success on issues because of the outside strategy working well for us. I want the third-party strategy to work because because it can pressure the inside if we as people stay committed to it. So that's where I disagree with Kyle. So here is the Rochford Files YouTube page. Still would like to see more views. Even inspired to see this Jimmy Dore video that they tried to take down. Currently at 57 views. If view rates keep up, it should be my most viewed video by the end of the day. And many of the others. See, the presence of this Jimmy Dore video has helped this video get more views. It slowly helped my video on Emily Wilder getting fired. And there's me live right now. We've reached the end of the show. Please subscribe to the Rochford Files on YouTube. Follow on Twitch as well. And as you subscribe, please like the videos, share them. And if you got time, go through and give me the thumbs up on all my current videos. It would really help me work against the algorithm and help me get that extra exposure I need to get my channel off the ground. So thank you, and I would appreciate if y'all would do that for me. So we've reached the end of the Rochford Files for today. As I said, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, follow on Twitch at least, and go to my Patreon. And if you feel I'm worthy of financial support, I would appreciate that as well. And also, please follow me on Twitter at NugLifeComrade. It's on the screen right now, NUGGLIF Comrade. And with that being said, I'll probably go solo on Friday, but work on getting guests for Saturday and Sunday streams. I think I'm going to go with the sports heavy stream on Saturday. I think I'm probably going to have that around 7 p.m. Eastern. So a bit after Game 3 of the Nuggets and Blazers end. So that's my plan for Saturday. Sunday, I don't know yet. But my goal is to get actual guests for both days. And we'll see what happens. And with that being said, I'd like to thank you all for watching the Rochford Files through YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook Live. And I'll see y'all on